I want to ask you a question, and I really want you to be brutally honest with yourself here. Do you ever feel like your days are just, slipping away?
Oh, yeah. Like water right through your fingers.
Exactly. Just right through your fingers. Like, picture your typical Tuesday, right? You wake up, you pour your coffee, and almost instantly you get pulled into the noise.
The emails, the notifications.
All of it. The news cycle, the obligations to other people. You're basically just putting out little fires all day long, and then suddenly it is Friday night.
And you are completely bone deep exhausted.
Right. But when you look back at the week, when you really examine it, you realize you are completely unchanged. You haven't moved forward on the things that actually matter to you.
Yeah, you're just running on a treadmill, generating a ton of sweat, but covering zero distance.
It is so frustrating. And that dissonance is exactly where we are starting today's deep dive.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at a brilliantly grounded, highly psychological transcript today.
It's from the YouTube channel Audiobook Ascend, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's titled 1 Hour a Day, The Discipline That Can Change Your Life. And I have to say, this source material is, it's a massive wake-up call.
It really is. It's incredibly sobering.
Because it doesn't give you these massive sweeping life hacks,
Yeah.
It actively strips away all the toxic productivity hype.
Oh, thank goodness. No more 4 a.m. ice bath hustle culture.
Right, none of that. It just looks at the messy, real, psychological, internal battle of how you actually change your life.
Which is so necessary right now. I mean, the current landscape of self-improvement often creates this illusion that you need to completely reinvent your entire personality by tomorrow morning.
Which is impossible.
Totally impossible. And your neurochemistry doesn't work that way either.
Yeah.
This material breaks that down and offers a highly mechanical, psychological approach to, incremental change.
So here is the mission for this deep dive. Instead of just giving you a list of self-help tips from the material, we are going to do something a lot more personal.
I like this approach.
We are going to put you, the listener, at the center of this narrative. We are going to write a short story, basically tracing the psychological journey of a protagonist, meaning you, who feels incredibly stuck right now.
Someone who has, frankly, lost a lot of self-respect because they keep breaking their own promises.
Exactly. Someone who is waiting for that magical, perfect time to finally start their life. And we are going to map out the exact psychological mechanism of how dedicating just one ordinary, thoroughly unglamorous hour a day can entirely rebuild your identity.
It's a powerful narrative arc.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think framing this around your direct experience is the only way to truly understand the mechanics at play here. Let's look at the starting line. Let's look at the setup.
Right, let's look at where you were probably stuck, because it's where this material begins. And let's be really clear here. You are not lazy.
No, not at all. If someone looked at your internet history, your saved bookmarks, your podcast library, they would think you are on the verge of taking over the world.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
You consume endless growth content. You listen to deep dives, you read the articles, you have meticulous notes in some digital workspace.
You probably have a beautifully color-coded Notion board.
Exactly. You feel inspired constantly, but you are caught in this brutal, paralyzing cycle of procrastination.
Because you assume that to actually change your life, whether that's, learning to code, writing a novel, getting into shape, you need massive action.
The material points out a really harsh truth about this exact state of being. It says people do not fail because they are lazy. They fail because they lack intention.
They lack intention.
Their days slip away because they have outsourced their time to the immediate demands of their environment. You have likely fallen into this cognitive trap of believing that meaningful change requires vast, uninterrupted blocks of time.
Right. You look at your schedule, the job, the commute, the family, the daily maintenance of just staying alive.
And you do the math. You think, well, I need 5 to 10 free hours a week to even make a dent in this goal. And if I can't find 5 hours, what is the point of even starting?
And because you can't find those 5 to 10 magical, perfectly aligned hours, what do? You wait.
You wait.
You say, I'll start when things calm down at work, or I'll start after the holidays when the kids are back in school.
And while you wait, absolutely nothing moves.
Nothing. But here is the terrifying part that the transcript explores. Waiting isn't neutral.
No, it's active destruction.
Right. It talks about the quiet damage of this holding pattern. Every single time you postpone a plan, every time you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, or you quietly abandon an agreement you made with yourself, it causes microscopic damage.
It's not a dramatic explosion. It's a quiet erosion.
Yeah, and if we look at the underlying neuroscience of this quiet damage, it becomes much more alarming than just, poor time management.
Oh, absolutely. The brain is an extraordinarily efficient pattern recognition machine. Every action, or lack of action, is a data point.
So it's keeping score.
Always keeping score. When you say, I will do X, and then you do not do X, you are not just delaying a project. You are actively training your subconscious.
Wow.
You are weakening the neural pathways associated with self-efficacy. You are teaching your brain that your own intentions, your own promises to yourself are entirely optional.
So you are literally conditioning yourself to be unreliable.
Precisely. Your self-trust is like a bank account. Every broken promise is a withdrawal. Over time, the balance goes to zero.
That is so bleak.
It is. Your confidence becomes incredibly fragile. Your goals stay unfinished, and slowly, your belief that you can actually execute anything just fades away. You start to view yourself as a flake.
It's a brutal realization for our protagonist here. I mean, I was trying to conceptualize this the other day, and I realized relying on motivation to achieve your goals is, it's like trying to power a major city on a wind-powered electrical grid, but without any battery backup.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Because when the wind is blowing, when you feel that surge of motivation after a great deep dive or a cup of coffee, it's amazing. The lights are on, the city is humming, you feel like you can conquer the world.
But the second the wind dies down,
the entire city goes black. Exactly. You can't run a baseline life, let alone achieve a massive multi-year goal on an energy source that is completely at the mercy of the weather.
you need a battery.
You need a battery. You need something that stores power and delivers it consistently, regardless of the conditions outside.
That is an excellent way to visualize it. Motivation is the wind, discipline is the battery. But I think we need to peel back another layer here regarding our protagonist.
Okay, let's do it.
Why do they resist building the battery? Why are we so obsessed with the idea that we need perfect conditions or that we need to feel ready before we do anything meaningful?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because the endless consuming of content feels like progress, right? It's like reading
Cookbooks.
Yeah, sit on your couch, reading all these incredible recipes, watching culinary shows, buying the best kitchen knives, organizing your spice rack. You feel like a chef.
Ah, I see.
But you refuse to actually turn on the stove. Why do we do this to ourselves?
If you examine the psychology of waiting to feel ready, it's incredibly revealing. We tell ourselves it's a time management issue or scheduling conflict or, a lack of resources.
But it's not.
No, waiting is rarely about time. It is almost always an emotional avoidance tactic driven by cognitive dissonance and ego protection.
Wait, I want you to expand on that. How is looking at my crowded calendar an emotional avoidance tactic?
Think about what happens the moment you actually start. The moment our protagonist stops planning and starts executing. They have to confront reality.
Oh, right. Reality is messy.
Very messy. You have to write that first page of code or that first chapter of your book or lift that weight, and you have to realize you're probably not very good at it yet.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible at first.
Exactly. When you wait for perfect conditions, you are actually protecting your fragile ego from the reality of trying and potentially failing or simply being mediocre.
That makes so much sense.
As long as the project lives in your head, as long as it's just a plan on a whiteboard, it is flawless.
Yeah.
It is a masterpiece. The moment you bring it into the real world, it becomes flawed.
So my brain just says, hey, let's just wait until we feel perfectly motivated, until we have the perfect block of time so the output will magically match the perfection of the idea.
Yes. It's a defense mechanism against the immense discomfort of being a beginner. And the transcript explicitly notes this phenomenon.
What does it say?
It described how people consume endless content, feeling highly productive because they are learning. But deep down, the learning is a shield.
The learning is a shield.
Now, they are avoiding building. They are avoiding being seen. They are avoiding the cortisol spike that comes with realizing their current skills do not match their ambitions. The learning acts as a socially acceptable substitute for action.
That completely shifts the perspective. So if waiting for this surge of motivation, waiting for the wind to blow, is a complete trap, how does our protagonist actually break out of this paralysis?
This leads us perfectly into the catalyst of their journey. They have to fundamentally redefine what discipline actually means.
And this is where the material introduces its central premise, right? The 1 hour a day rule.
Yes, but it frames it in a way that is entirely divorced from how mainstream culture currently talks about discipline.
Because usually when we hear the word discipline, we immediately picture punishment.
Always.
We picture a drill sergeant. We picture waking up in the dark, grinding your teeth, screaming affirmations in the mirror, and basically just torturing yourself into productivity.
It's framed as this intense, aggressive, highly emotional state that you have to somehow summon from the depths of your soul.
Right. We view discipline as a feeling.
But the material explicitly argues that discipline is not a feeling. It is an agreement.
An agreement.
That single distinction changes the entire paradigm. Moods are inherently unstable.
Yeah.
Your mood is a biological cocktail fluctuating based on how much sleep you got, your blood sugar levels, the weather, a stressful email you received 5 minutes ago.
Or just random intrusive thoughts.
Exactly. If you hand control of your future over to your endocrine system and your daily mood, you're relying on an incredibly chaotic operating system.
You are playing the lottery with your own life goals. If you only work when you feel like it, you're basically saying, well, I hope the stars align today so I can make progress.
Exactly. So in our narrative, this is your turning point. You, the protagonist, stumble upon this concept. You realize you have been treating your goals like a mood ring.
And you discover the simple rule, 1 hour a day, same time, same purpose, no negotiating with your mood.
The transcript shares a very illuminating case study here about an individual. It was a family member of the author. He was highly intelligent, capable, and full of brilliant plans, but he was constantly restarting.
Oh, I know that cycle.
Every new attempt came with this massive, overwhelming burst of excitement, followed a few weeks later by complete silence.
That is the quintessential cycle. The hype, the crash, the shame, we've all been there. You buy the domain names, you design the logo, you tell everyone, and then 3 weeks later you pretend you never had the idea.
And this individual eventually admitted something terrifying. He didn't trust himself anymore.
Because of the quiet damage.
Yes, not because he lacked intellectual ability, but because he kept breaking his own word. He'd caused too much quiet damage.
So what was his catalyst?
He reduced everything to one simple, emotionless agreement. 1 hour. Same time, same purpose. He removed the emotional debate entirely.
And did it work?
The text notes that at first it felt mechanical. It felt almost lifeless compared to his usual manic burst of inspiration. But it removed his guilt and his constant internal tension because the decision to work was already made.
I am fascinated by this idea of removing the debate. Because if we look at it objectively, we do this in other areas of our lives without even thinking about it. Right?
All the time.
We effortlessly show up for our jobs, we show up for our families, we take our kids to school, we pay our taxes. Why? Because we gave our word. We signed a contract.
Exactly.
Then wake up every morning, look at the ceiling, and ask yourself, do I feel passionately inspired to go to my office job today?
No, you just go.
Yeah.
Because the external agreement supersedes your internal mood.
Yes. You understand that reliability is non-negotiable when it involves other people. But the second it comes to our own goals, our own future, our own dreams, suddenly it's totally optional.
That's tragic, really.
We treat ourselves with the level of flakiness and disrespect that we would never, ever accept from a friend or a coworker. But I have to push back here for our protagonist.
Okay, let's hear it.
I really struggle to reconcile this strictness with the reality of living a balanced life. If I am enforcing this absolute rigid boundary on myself every single day, say 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. is my hour no matter what, how does that not just become a daily prison sentence?
A prison sentence, I hear that a lot.
Doesn't a strict boundary like that strip away all the joy and spontaneity of life?
That is the exact paradox that trips people up. They resist discipline because they feel it restricts their freedom. They conflate freedom with infinite flexibility.
Oh, yeah.
But if you look at the psychology of decision-making, infinite flexibility without structure inevitably devolves into chaos.
Chaos. I mean, having a totally open evening sounds pretty relaxing to me.
It sounds relaxing until you realize what your brain is actually doing with that open time. If you have infinite flexibility regarding your goals, you spend your entire day debating with yourself.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Should I work out now? Maybe after dinner, I'm a little tired. Maybe I'll wake up early tomorrow and do it then. But tomorrow I have that meeting.
Right.
That internal negotiation is a recognized psychological phenomenon called decision fatigue, and it leads directly to ego depletion.
Meaning you are exhausting yourself just by thinking about doing the work.
Precisely. You drain an unbelievable amount of cognitive energy just managing the anxiety of the unmade decision. By locking in this 1 hour agreement, you actually free up the rest of your day.
Because the decision is already made.
Think about it. If you with absolute unwavering certainty that from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. you're going to sit down and work on your goal, the rest of your day becomes significantly lighter.
That makes so much sense. You stop carrying that heavy, low-grade background anxiety of, oh, should I be working on this right now?
Exactly. The decision was already made in the past when your mind was clear and calm. Your only job when 8 p.m. rolls around is simply to execute.
True freedom isn't the absence of structure.
No, true freedom is the mental clarity that comes from knowing certain things are already handled. Debate drains energy. Agreements conserve it.
Debate drains energy. Agreements conserve it. I love that. That completely reframes it. Okay, so let's say our protagonist buys into this. You make the agreement, you write it down, 1 hour, 1 time, 1 purpose.
You set the boundary.
Now we transition into the process, the actual execution. The clock strikes 8 p.m. You are sitting at your desk. What is actually happening in that room? Because as we established earlier, just reading another cookbook isn't going to cut it.
No, it won't. And this is where the methodology gets incredibly specific. It addresses the second major trap people fall into. They manage to protect the time, they show up consistently, but months pass and they realize nothing has fundamentally changed.
Oh, that would be devastating.
The material is very blunt regarding this. Not all hours are equal. Activity is not progress. Staying busy is not the same as moving forward.
Which is such a tough pill to swallow, especially for high achievers, because you can sit at your desk for an hour, shuffling papers, color-coding your calendar, optimizing your Notion workspace, reading 5 articles about how to be a better writer.
And you feel exhausted afterward.
Yeah, you feel the physical sensation of having worked hard.
But you were just sophisticatedly avoiding the actual work. The text highlights a story of someone who committed to the 1-hour rule faithfully. They didn't miss a day.
But what happened?
After 2 months, they felt totally stuck. They said, I'm doing the time, but nothing's changing. The system is broken.
And what were they actually doing?
When they looked closer at the behavior, the pattern was obvious. Their hour was entirely filled with planning, researching, organizing, doing everything except the one core action that would actually move the needle.
They were safely tucked away in the consumption zone.
Exactly. So the foundational rule for this hour is this. The hour must produce an output.
Output, okay.
It has to be aimed at building, not consuming. Building means producing something tangible that did not exist before the hour began.
Like what?
A drafted page of text, a newly written block of code, a physically practiced skill, a completed sketch. As we discussed regarding cognitive dissonance, consumption feels completely safe. Creation or output exposes your current skill level, which triggers vulnerability.
Right, because when you create, you force feedback loops. You are forced to see exactly where you are weak. You move from the comfortable safety of your imagination into the harder, objective light of reality.
Yes, you have to actually face how bad you might be at the beginning.
Okay, so you have to actually type words onto the blank page. You have to produce an output. That makes logical sense. But there is another layer to this process that the material emphasizes, and I have to admit, it goes against absolutely everything we are taught in modern culture.
Oh, the silence rule.
Yes. It advocates for the quiet power of doing the work when no one is watching. The rule is, do not announce your plans. Work in total silence.
This is arguably the most crucial psychological strategy in the entire framework. We live in a hyper-connected world that aggressively encourages us to broadcast everything we do.
We announce our intentions, we post about our new diet regimen, we tweet that we are writing a screenplay, we update our LinkedIn to say we are building something new.
And we do this under the guise of building accountability.
Let me stop you right there because I really need to push back on this on behalf of our protagonists. We are constantly, relentlessly told by life coaches and productivity experts to find accountability buddies, right?
That is the standard advice, yes.
We are told to announce our goals publicly so that public pressure forces us to act. The fear of public embarrassment is supposed to be the ultimate motivator to keep us on track. Doesn't working in total secretive silence make it way too easy for you to just quietly quit?
I understand that logic, I really do. But if you look at the neurochemical mechanisms of motivation, you see a totally different, much more destructive process at play when you announce your goals.
What process?
The material breaks down the psychological difference between sympathy and responsibility. When you announce your plans publicly, your brain often confuses social recognition with actual achievement.
Wait, how does the brain confuse talking with doing?
It comes down to the dopamine reward system. When you say, I'm writing a novel, and your friends say, oh my gosh, that's amazing, you're so creative, I can't wait to read it. Your brain receives a massive rush of social validation and dopamine.
Oh, wow.
You feel a profound sense of completion. You feel the neurochemical reward of success before you have written a single word.
You have essentially hacked your brain's reward system. You are consuming the exact dopamine hit that is evolutionarily supposed to be reserved for crossing the finish line.
Precisely.
Oh, that is insidious. So you get the high of being a novelist without the grueling pain of actually writing the novel.
And then what happens?
When that initial excitement fades, and it always does, the effort fades too. Because why would you subject yourself to the misery of writing a terrible first draft when you've already received the applause? You've drained the motivational tank before you even put the car in drive.
Exactly. Trying publicly earned sympathy and unearned praise. Doing the work requires silent patience. Working in complete silence removes that cheap neurochemical shortcut.
So it forces you to actually earn the dopamine.
Yes. It forces progress to come only from action. It replaces the volatile system of external validation with an uncompromising internal standard. It forces you to answer one clean, unavoidable question when you sit down at 8 p.m. Did I show up today?
Because there is no audience to impress and no audience to disappoint except yourself. That is incredibly stark. It shifts the entire weight of the endeavor onto your own shoulders. It also completely removes the trap of comparison, doesn't it?
Oh, entirely.
Because if you are working in silence, you aren't looking at your friend who just launched a successful app and feeling like you're falling behind. You are only looking at your own output from yesterday.
The text says that silence protects fragile progress.
And that makes sense. In the early stages of a new endeavor, your confidence is so new, so delicate. It's almost like a newly sprouted seed.
If you share it too early, You open yourself up to doubt, to unsolicited opinions, to constructive criticism from people who have never built anything themselves.
Yeah, that external noise can just crush your momentum before you even establish a bit line of competence.
Working quietly gives your discipline the necessary time to mature. By the time the results of your labor become visible to the outside world, your identity has already solidified around the habit.
So it is much harder for external opinions to shake you.
Exactly. The recommendation is to try a 30, 60, or 90-day period of total silence regarding your goal. No updates, no social media posts, no casual mentions at dinner parties, no justifications.
Just do the work in the dark.
Right.
Let the tangible results do the talking eventually.
Yes.
Okay, so our protagonist is doing it. You are working in silence. You are focusing entirely on output, not consumption. Let's say the first week goes pretty well.
It usually does.
It's new, it's a bit of a novelty, you feel a surge of pride, but now we have to look at what happens when the honeymoon phase ends. Let's fast forward in your journey. It is week 4.
The dreaded week 4.
The novelty has completely evaporated. The shiny newness is gone. You are not excited anymore. No one is cheering you on because you are strictly adhering to the rule of silence. The grim, unsexy reality of the daily grind has fully set in.
This is the critical juncture. This is the exact moment where the vast majority of people abandon their goals.
It's hitting the wall.
It is hitting the wall. The initial burst of wind has died down. The excitement disappears. The progress feels painfully, agonizingly slow. And what remains in the room with you is pure, unadulterated boredom.
Boredom.
And here's where people fundamentally misinterpret their own psychological signals. They believe that boredom is a red flag.
They think, well, I'm not inspired anymore. I'm not feeling the passion. This feels like a chore. Therefore, I must be pursuing the wrong goal.
Right. They view boredom as a symptom of a broken system. But the underlying psychology argues the exact opposite. Boredom means the system is finally working.
I need you to explain that. How on earth is boredom? The feeling of wanting to peel your own skin off because you are so disengaged. How is that the goal?
Because boredom means you have moved past the initial phase of novelty stimulation and into the phase of repetition. And repetition is the only mechanism through which real structural neurological change is built in the brain.
The only mechanism.
Yes. The process of myelination, where your brain wraps neural pathways in a fatty sheath to make them faster and more efficient, only happens through extensive, monotonous repetition. Repetition feels flat. It doesn't reward you emotionally with spikes of dopamine. It simply asks you to execute the action again.
That is a massive paradigm shift. I think about this in terms of our modern attention spans. Let me try this analogy for you.
Go for it.
We are essentially dealing with a societal level sugar addiction. We are so profoundly addicted to the sugar of feeling engaged, feeling entertained, feeling that constant dopamine rush of a new TikTok video, a new notification, a new exciting idea.
Definitely.
So the very second a task stops tasting like candy and starts tasting like plain steamed broccoli, which is what boredom is, we immediately assume something is deeply wrong. We spit it out. We assume we shouldn't be eating it because it doesn't give us a rush. But the broccoli is where the actual nutrients are.
That analogy perfectly captures the neurochemical reality. We are addicted to stimulation, and we confuse stimulation with progress. We mistake the feeling of being engaged for the act of moving forward. When the engagement vanishes, we assume we have drifted off track. But in reality, boredom often means you have finally focused your attention long enough for the brain to stop seeking novelty and start doing the heavy lifting of building permanent neurological pathways.
So boredom is sitting right there next to you at your desk. You're staring at the screen. And then boredom's incredibly persuasive cousin shows up. Resistance.
Ah, resistance.
The text points out how incredibly sneaky the voice of resistance is. It doesn't usually scream at you to quit and be a failure. That would be too obvious.
No, it's much smarter than that.
It offers very reasonable, highly logical sounding excuses to just skip tonight.
Yes. The internal monologue sounds incredibly rational.
Yeah.
You've been so consistent all week, you deserve a night off to recharge.
It was a brutal day at the office. You're too exhausted to produce good work anyway.
Missing just one day won't derail the whole project.
Or my favorite. You can always double up and do 2 hours tomorrow.
I'll do 2 hours tomorrow. That is the single biggest, most destructive lie the human brain has ever invented.
It is a trap. These thoughts feel harmless. They feel like self-care.
But the psychological reality is that these thoughts are the final, desperate defense mechanisms of your old identity. The old version of you, the version that prefers comfort over growth, is fighting for its life. It's trying to pull you back into the familiar, comfortable pattern of avoidance.
So what is the strategic response for our protagonist? When resistance is presenting a perfectly logical argument to quit, and boredom is making the work feel unbearable, what do?
The material offers a crucial, counterintuitive rule for these hardest days. Do less, but don't stop.
Do less, but don't stop. I have to admit, I really bristle at this idea.
Why is that?
If the entire point of this framework is to build ironclad discipline, and I sit down on a Tuesday and I feel terrible, and my brain says, well, I'll just do the absolute bare minimum today for 15 minutes and call it a win, aren't I just coddling myself? Yeah. Doesn't true discipline mean pushing through the pain and forcing a high level of output no matter how awful you feel? If I lower the bar, aren't I just lowering my standards?
It's a very common objection, and it highlights the immense danger of all or nothing thinking. We are conditioned to believe that progress demands high intensity every single day.
Right. Go hard or go home.
The logic goes, if I can't do an amazing, highly productive hour, doing a mediocre hour is a waste of time, so I shouldn't do it at all. But true behavioral change breaks that pattern by focusing on something far more important than daily intensity.
Which is?
It focuses on continuity. Lowering the bar protects the continuity.
Let me make sure I am grasping the mechanics of this. You are saying that the unbroken chain of action is mathematically more important than the volume of work produced on any given day.
Exactly. Dropping the intensity protects the continuity, which preserves the habit loop in your brain.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Sure. If your goal is to write code for an hour, and you are exhausted, sick, and facing massive resistance, your minimum acceptable threshold might be reduced to simply sitting at the desk, opening the software, and writing one single line of code.
One line.
Or, in extreme cases, just sitting in the chair staring at the screen for the designated time. The critical factor is that you did not abandon the agreement. You still crossed the threshold of the room at the appointed time.
So success on those highly resistant days is not measured by output.
No, it is measured entirely by attendance.
Attendance over output on the bad days. Because if you skip the day entirely, you reinforce the old neural pathway of quitting when things get hard. But if you sit there and write one line of code, you reinforce the identity of someone who shows up.
Yes, you keep the neural pathway alive. You keep the identity intact. The text goes to great lengths to emphasize that discipline isn't about suppressing emotion.
That's interesting.
This is perhaps the most damaging misconception about high performers. People think disciplined individuals are essentially sociopathic robots who don't feel tired or bored or tempted to quit.
That they're just biologically different.
But that is empirically false. Disciplined people feel the exact same crushing boredom and profound resistance as everyone else. The psychological difference is that they refuse to let those internal feelings dictate their external physical actions.
No.
You can feel profoundly bored and still type on a keyboard. You can feel massive, heavy resistance and still physically walk into a gym. Emotion does not require obedience.
Emotion does not require obedience.
Yeah.
That is a massive realization for our protagonist. You don't have to conquer the feeling. You don't have to listen to a motivational speech to hype yourself out of the bad mood.
Yo.
You can just let the boredom sit in the room with you like an annoying roommate, and you just keep working while ignoring it.
You allow the negative emotion to exist without using it as an excuse to escape. And the material argues that by doing this, you build a rare, incredibly potent tolerance for monotony that becomes an unfair advantage in life.
Because, let's face it, the vast majority of achieving anything significant, whether it's building a business, mastering an instrument, getting a degree, is incredibly, undeniably monotonous.
It is an endurance sport of monotony. The ability to endure mild psychological discomfort without instantly escaping into your smartphone or a snack or a distracting new project is one of the rarest and most economically valuable skills in the modern attention economy.
So the bad days are actually the most important days.
Exactly. The days you desperately want to quit are not obstacles blocking your path. They are the path. They are the exact, specific moments where the neurological trait of discipline is forged.
Because it's easy to do the work when you feel good.
Right. If you only execute when you feel physically strong and emotionally inspired, you aren't disciplined. You are just opportunistic. True discipline is proven exclusively on the days you feel total indifference.
Okay, so our protagonist pushes through week 4. You push through month 2. You lower the bar on the bad days, doing the bare minimum when you have to, but you never break the continuity. You never miss attendance.
You keep the agreement.
And the days slowly turn into weeks, and the weeks aggregate into months. This brings us to the final phase of this journey, the outcome.
This is where things really shift.
The identity shift and the realistic transformation. Let's look at you 6 months later. And again, what makes this material so compelling is how grounded it is.
There is no cinematic montage playing in the background.
Exactly. Your life hasn't magically become a flawless utopia. You aren't suddenly a billionaire living on a yacht. You still have bad days, you still get stuck in traffic, you still get annoyed, but a deep, fundamental structural transformation has occurred internally.
Yes, and this is where the psychology moves from behavioral tracking to profound cognitive restructuring.
What does that mean, practically?
The core thesis of the outcome phase is this. You don't do discipline, you become disciplined. Identity, from a psychological standpoint, is simply the story you consistently believe about yourself, plus the objective evidence you have collected to support that story.
Evidence. That is the key word. Because you can't just stand in front of a mirror every morning and shout positive affirmations at yourself, right?
Exactly.
Like, I am a disciplined person. I am a highly effective person. If you haven't actually done the work, your brain knows you are lying. You trigger cognitive dissonance because your actions don't match your words.
Exactly. Affirmations without action are just self-inflicted delusions.
Yeah.
But every single hour you completed over those 6 months, even the terrible hours where you only wrote one line of code, was a vote.
A vote.
It was a tangible deposit into your psychological evidence account. After 6 months, you have roughly 180 hours of undeniable objective proof that you are someone who keeps their word. Your brain has no choice but to update your identity to match your sustained behavior.
And the language you use to describe yourself begins to shift organically, doesn't it?
Yes, the linguistic shifts are fascinating.
In the beginning of this process, you probably told yourself, I'm trying to be disciplined, or I have to do my hour tonight.
Those phrases are very telling. They place the trait outside of you. It's a burden you are carrying.
But after 6 months of evidence, the internal monologue shifts. It shifts to, this is just what I do.
The linguistic transition from I have to this is what I do is the psychological hallmark of true identity change. When a behavior becomes part of your core identity, you stop debating its execution.
That reminds me of what you said earlier about decision fatigue.
Exactly. Think about it. You don't wake up and have a 20-minute internal debate about whether you were in the mood to brush your teeth, right?
No, I just do it.
You just do it, regardless of your mood, because you identify as someone with basic oral hygiene. It requires zero willpower. After 6 months, you no longer debate your dedicated hour. It has become a default automated behavior.
And because of that automation, your self-trust is completely rebuilt. You finally know that your word means something. But here is a part of the transcript I found profoundly liberating.
A part about missing a day.
Yes. It addresses what happens when you inevitably miss a day. Because you are human, you get the flu, there's a family emergency, a flight gets canceled, life simply intervenes.
It happens to everyone.
In the past, before you built this battery, missing a day would have triggered a total psychological collapse. It would be taken as proof that you are a failure, that you are fundamentally flawed, and you would spiral into shame and abandon the project for 3 months.
But now, operating from a rebuilt identity and a deep reservoir of self-trust, a missed day is interpreted by your brain entirely differently.
How so?
It is no longer a catastrophe. It is simply a statistical deviation. And deviations are meant to be quickly corrected. You don't turn the mistake into a meaning about your character.
You don't say, I missed a day, therefore I am an inconsistent failure.
Right. You say, I am a disciplined person, and today I return to my baseline agreement. Trust is not destroyed by missing a single day. It is destroyed by ignoring the miss and letting it snowball.
So you just get right back on the horse.
When you acknowledge the deviation and seamlessly return to the habit the very next day, your self-trust actually strengthens because you prove you can recover from failure.
So what does this actually feel like in your daily life for our protagonist after 6 months?
The material notes that your mind is noticeably quieter.
Quieter.
Yes. The constant, exhausting internal conflict, the hum of anxiety about what you should be doing with your potential fades away. Your focus improves naturally, not just during that specific hour, but across your whole day, because you aren't carrying the mental weight of unfulfilled intentions.
But the biggest change is entirely internal. You no longer see yourself as someone waiting on the sidelines for the perfect moment to become better. You are someone who is actively in motion.
Yes, in motion.
I just have to pause and point out how deeply relieving it is to hear that the ultimate goal isn't a flawless, perfectly optimized, stress-free life. It's just achieving a state of steady, grounded motion. I'd love for you to expand on that. From a psychological perspective, how freeing is it to finally stop arguing with yourself every single day?
It is the difference between living in a constant state of internal friction versus a state of cognitive alignment. When you are constantly arguing with yourself, negotiating with your laziness, you are burning vast amounts of cognitive fuel just trying to get to the starting line.
By the time you start, you are exhausted.
Exactly. When you possess genuine self-trust, that friction disappears.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, that you are the type of person who executes what they intend to execute.
And because of that baseline reliability, your massive multi-year goals stop feeling like distant, impossible fantasies that induce anxiety.
They just become a matter of time and arithmetic. Confidence, true functional confidence, does not come from achieving massive success, and it doesn't come from a feeling of absolute certainty. It comes from knowing you are reliable.
When you know you are reliable, you stop worrying about the destination.
You trust the process to get you where you need to go.
You trust the process because you implicitly trust the person executing it. That is incredibly powerful. Well, as we look to wrap up this extensive journey, let's briefly recap what we, that you, the listener, our protagonist, have uncovered during this deep dive into the 1 hour a day philosophy.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We did. We started by confronting the quiet, corrosive damage of procrastination, realizing that waiting for perfect conditions isn't about time management. It's a mechanism of emotional avoidance to protect our ego from being a beginner.
We discovered the catalyst, which was defining discipline not as a fleeting, volatile mood, but as a rigid, emotionless agreement we make with ourselves to conserve cognitive energy.
And reclaim our mental freedom. We learned that during the execution of that hour, we must focus exclusively on output, building instead of consuming.
And that working in total silence protects our fragile early progress from the false, destructive dopamine hits of premature social approval.
We faced the inevitable wall of boredom and resistance, learning that the secret isn't pushing harder, but simply refusing to stop, lowering the bar on bad days to protect the neurological continuity of the habit.
And finally, we saw how 6 months of this ordinary, unglamorous, highly monotonous hour fundamentally rewrites your identity, replacing the anxiety of potential with the quiet confidence of undeniable daily evidence.
It is a profound philosophical shift. You move from trying to forcefully hack your life through massive, unsustainable bursts of effort to allowing genuine change to happen through alignment, patience, and relentless repetition.
It's quiet, it's slow, and it is built incrementally, brick by brick.
Exactly. So I want to ask you directly, right now. What is your one priority? What is the one thing you have been endlessly researching, talking about, and putting off, waiting to magically feel ready for?
What will your 1 hour be aimed at tomorrow?
Remember, you do not need a grand, sweeping life plan. You do not need to optimize your entire existence or wake up at 4 a.m. You just need to make a quiet, non-negotiable decision about 60 minutes of your day.
And as you think about how you will allocate that hour, I want to leave you with one final, slightly uncomfortable thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
It builds on the idea that discipline is ultimately the truest measure of your relationship with yourself. If true discipline is just a metric of how much you trust your own word, look at your life right now.
Oh, this is gonna hurt.
Look at how easily, how effortlessly, and how consistently you give your time, your energy, and your unwavering commitment to other people, to your boss, to your clients, to your friends, to your family.
And now look at how quickly, how easily, and how often you cancel on yourself.
What does your current daily schedule say about whose future you actually respect the most?
Ouch. That is a question that burrows deep and sticks with you. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up and you feel your day inevitably starting to slip away into the noise and the demands of everyone else, remember, you don't need a perfectly clear path.
You don't need a massive surge of motivation.
You just need an agreement. The clock is running. It's time to turn on the stove.
Keep your agreement.
We'll see you next time.